Aloha and welcome to Action Island. I am Gilles Gallant and I'm joined by Sean Koerner, Nick Giffen, and Grant Neiffer. And the three of us, we are going to take a look at this matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Chargers. We kick off week 8 with Thursday Night Football. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a four-leg same game parlay for tonight's matchup. So here's how it works. If this is your first time watching the show, the four of us, we each have our two favorite bets for tonight's game. And then what we'll do is we'll each give out these two bets, and then we're going to vote on which pick that we're going to decide will stay as the parlay, as one of the legs on the parlay, rather. So by the end of the show, we should have a nice four-leg same game parlay for Vikings Chargers. And we have quick slip links for each one of these bets. So if you're not interested in the parlay, but you still want to bet one of these legs of the parlay or even just one of the bets from our experts here, there's a link in the quick slips in the YouTube chat rather, where you can just click that. It'll take you directly to the sportsbook where you can tail that bet. All right, Grant Neiffer, master of the bangers. What are your two favorite bets for Thursday Night Football?
All right, first one, real simple. Vidal to score a touchdown. I got him at plus 125. It's up to plus 140 right now because TD bets always tend to move the day of
Ooh.
up. So, yeah, if you haven't got it, now is a great time to get him at plus 140 because the volume should be huge in this spot. Like, no Haskins in there today. They gave him a ton of work the last few weeks. They're clearly going to play him a ton yet. Hines is probably going to come in and steal a few looks, but Vidal is going to be the main guy in this offense. He should get all the red zone work. He already has 12 red zone touches and 4 targets so far this season, and he's barely played. So he's going to have the usage. Minnesota, who's historically been a pretty big pass funnel, not as much this year. Teams are running the ball a decent amount against them, and they're middle of the pack in yards per carry allowed. So Vidal getting him at plus 140 for a clear workhorse back is absolutely silly to me, especially considering the Vikings are a 3.5 point dog in this spot. And then the
Yeah,
next
and
one is going to be, sorry, go ahead.
no, go for it.
All right, we're going Gadsden. 5+ receptions. I got it around plus 145. You can get anywhere from plus 115 to plus 145 right now. I like him at all those odds because this is a bit too low here. I mean, we've seen what he's done the last 2 weeks. 7 receptions each of the last 2 weeks, 8 targets and 9 targets in those 2 weeks. The guy looks good. He's clearly taken over this lead tight end spot here, getting a ton of snaps, 75 and 79 the last 2 weeks. So he's the guy in this offense at tight end. He's incredibly talented. We've seen the last 2 weeks. He looks just phenomenal. Yes, I know they have a lot of guys to go around here, but he should still get the volume. Getting this at these odds kind of seems silly. If you want to go a little less ballsy, you can go with the over 3.5 receptions at like minus 160, but I don't mind laddering this up to 7+ in this spot here. To me, it has a lot of value at plus odds at 5+, so I'm rolling with it.
Yeah, and it sounds like the market hasn't really caught up to the Gadsden effect here in this Chargers offense. And Vidal, I mean, Grant, we talk about this all the time with the touchdown shenanigans that some of these sports books do, that you could almost probably wait till like an hour before kickoff where you could get the best value on some of these guys here. So, guys, we got to take a vote. Sean, Nick, are we going to take Kamani Vidal touchdown at plus 140 or Gadsden 5+ receptions at plus 145? So let's take a vote. All right, you could probably tell by the way I almost interrupted Grant after he gave out his Vidal touchdown bet that I'm going to take Vidal touchdown. Sean, Nick, did you guys agree or did you guys take Gadsden?
Obviously, I went with Gadsden.
Yeah, I kind of figured Koerner was going to. I wasn't sure what Nick was going to, but did you write down orange? Is that what you had, Nick? Or did you have Gadsden as well? It doesn't matter. Yeah, Kamani Vidal, touchdown. That's the one. That's one of Grant's bets, but we are going with Gadsden 5+ receptions as the first leg of this same game parlay. All right, Sean, you've been very vocal about the emergence of Gadsden in this offense, and I believe that's going to probably be one of your bets. So, what are the two bets that you like for Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, so first up, I'm going to stick with Aranda Gadsden here. I'm going with over 42.5 receiving yards. I actually locked this in at 37.5 back on Tuesday when Chris Raba and I were recording the Fancy Flex projections pod. I was actually trying to set this prop for Raybon to bet on. And I felt like I couldn't set it high enough. I set it at like 41 and a half. Raybon smashed the over. And then we went to go look to see if any books were offering props yet. And sure enough, they were offering 37 and a half, 38 and a half. So I was like, holy shit, I got to lock it in today. There's no way it's going to be under 40 by today because he's coming off that historic game where last week he caught 7 balls for 164 yards and a touchdown. The most receiving yards by a rookie tight end since 1985. And Jill, I've been banging the table for him
Yep.
the past couple weeks on the touchdown show. He was actually my favorite touchdown bet for our favorite touchdown bet parlay. So I've been high on him. I comped him to Darren Waller heading into the season. Gadsden was a fifth round pick, but I thought he was way too talented to go that late. It was just a loaded tight end class. So I think he's one of the best rookie tight ends this year, and we've kind of seen that happen in this offense. He's running a route 75% of the time now. So he's the full, pass catching tight end. Loving this spot. So I locked in this price on Tuesday, and then I was actually able to dive into the matchup a little bit more, and I loved it even more. The Vikings use zone defense at a top 10 rate. If you look at all the qualified wide receivers and tight ends in the league, Gadsden ranked sixth in the league in yards per route run. And the Vikings also blitz at the second highest rate. If you look against the blitz, only Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jackson Smith-Njigba have a higher yards per route run than Rondé Gadsden. So this is just a perfect spot for him to keep rolling. Obviously, he's not going to post 164 yards tonight, but I think 42 and a half is an easy bar to clear for him. So I still like his upside here. And then next up, I'm going to just go with my best bet for my Thursday Night Football game guide, and that's Vikings plus 3.5. It's down to 3 in some spots. I try to get the hook here at 3.5 if you can. But check out my article for my full breakdown. But in a nutshell, I'm just projecting this Vikings offense to be at its peak this week. This is going to be the first time we have Christian Darrisaw, Jordan Addison, and now Aaron Jones back in the lineup. Plus, Carson Wentz has been an upgrade over JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy was one of the worst quarterbacks in his first 2 games of the season. So it'll be interesting to see when he's healthy if he even returns to the starting role if Wentz continues to play well. So I'm projecting the Vikings offense to be at its best tonight as it has been all season. And on the other side, I'm probably going to the game tonight. And one thing with SoFi Stadium is I'm anticipating to see way more purple jerseys than blue. I'll be more neutral, but I'll be rooting for the Vikings tonight for my bets. But yeah, if you look back at the Chargers against the spread at SoFi, they're just 17 and 18 against the spread, but on the road, they're 22 and 15. So they have one of the worst home field advantages in the league, and I think there's going to be a ton of Vikings fans there tonight. So I think they're just getting too many points here at 3.5. So like locking in the key number 3.5 here.
Well, with that Chargers hat on and you're wanting to remain neutral, you might have to break out the Rob Lowe like NFL
Yeah,
hat or
I'm
something, right?
definitely going. I'm going like an NFL hat or like a Bears hat, something neutral. I'm not going to go in a Vikings hat or this hat, but I'll definitely be like a neutral fan.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to end up on one of those viral videos of fans arguing with each other in the
Yeah.
stands over something silly like that. All right, guys, we got to take a vote. Are we going to double down on Gadsden and take the over on his receiving yards to pair with the 5+ receptions, or are we going to take the Minnesota Vikings to cover the +3.5 spread? So, Nick, Grant, let's take a vote. All right, guys, full disclosure, I already tailed Sean on the receiving yards prop on Gadsden earlier in the week, so I'm going to keep going with that. And Grant, oh, on the Vikings. Okay, all right. Grant's, I believe you're pretty high on the Vikings in this game as well, so that's a nice little spot there. So again, but that is the second leg of the parlay we're going to add in with Gadsden receiving yards to pair with 5+ receptions. Now, before we get to Nick, if you want access to all of Action Pro projections, make sure to sign up for an annual subscription to Action Pro. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Koerner and other members of the Action Analytics team, anytime touchdown projections. You'll get access to the best spread, money line, and total bets. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code ISLAND20 at sign up. One more time, that's ISLAND20 at sign up for $20 off. Okay, Nick. usually the first question I always want to ask you is just you being the master of the luck rankings. Does this game apply at all from a luck ranking standpoint?
No.
Okay.
Simple answer. No. No
And
luck,
that's all
no
we
luck
needed to know. So
implications
now,
here.
now that we know that the luck rankings are not in play, what are the two bets that you like for this game?
I'm gonna start with it relates to Sean's bet here, but instead of taking the Vikings plus 3.5, I'm gonna go Minnesota Vikings team total over 20 and a half. I think the best number out there right now is plus 100, so even money at Bet365. In 4 games so far this year with Carson Wentz and, of course, Darisaw, as Sean was alluding to, the Vikings schedule adjusted expected scores, which, of course, the expected scores power our luck rankings, but their schedule adjusted expected score is 25.5 points per game. And they have scored over 25 points per game as well in those 4 games with Wentz. And the Chargers are right around a league average defense, maybe a little worse, depending if you use DVOA, but also just time of possession. They tend to not allow teams to possess the ball as much. So, adjusting for all of that stuff, I still have Minnesota right around 24 expected points in this game, which is well above the 20 and a half. And, that's even if you count for the essentially non-existent home field advantage of the Chargers there. Sean mentioned, the Vikings have a full complement of offensive weapons now with Aaron Jones, Addison, Darisaw is healthy. So, like he said, this offense should be running at its peak. And this will go towards my second pick as well, but you can run all over this Chargers defense,
Yeah.
especially on the outsides. The Chargers allow more than 6 yards per carry to the left and more than 6 yards per carry to the right when we look at runs that are at least 14 yards away from the end zone. And I've even done the added benefit of removing QB scrambles, which tend to go for even more yards. So this is just to like running backs and if the random wide receiver end around type stuff. So yeah, I think the Minnesota's going to have no trouble moving the ball tonight.
All right. So Vikings team total over 20 and a half, looking very healthy, going to bounce back hopefully from that loss to the Eagles last week. But you have a second bet, and it's also on the Vikings side.
Yeah, so I alluded to it, the rushing stuff there. So I know Aaron Jones is back and he's going to play. So I'm going to go to Jordan Mason, but not an under here. I'm going to go to an over. But as Sean and I were talking about beforehand, I don't really want to go with his like median or over his normal line because there is some downside with Aaron Jones. So I want to play the upside here for Jordan Mason in this matchup and take 70 plus rushing yards. You can get that plus 220 at DraftKings. As I mentioned, you can run all over the Chargers defense on the outsides, and Minnesota specifically runs to the outside at the fifth highest rate in the NFL, and even higher when it's Jordan Mason than when it's Aaron Jones or some of these other random runs that they have. So, Jordan Mason, 81% of his runs have been either to the left or to the right. And again, Chargers allowing 6 yards per carry on these runs when they're at least 14 yards away from the end zone. I have Mason projected for around 13 carries. I think Sean does as well. And around 90% of Mason's runs do come from at least 14 yards away from the end zone. So if you take 90% of 13, and then 80% of those to the outside, that's like 9 or 9.5 carries he should have on runs to the outside, where he could at least have a chance to bust at least a 14-yarder. At 6 yards per carry, I mean, 9 times 6, right? That's 54. So we're talking, if it's 9.5, we're almost at 60 yards right there, just on runs to the outside from far enough away. Add closer runs to the end zone, add runs over the middle, and I can easily see a path here to 70 plus rushing yards. Chargers allow the third highest explosive run rate. So you're kind of playing to this upside here rather than the median because Aaron Jones is back and should see, a handful of carries, maybe 5 or 6 or so. And again, I agree with Sean on Minnesota to cover. And if Minnesota covers, it should be a more run heavy script in general. So that's why I like this. And to play the upside here, I'm showing the most value on 70 plus yards at plus 220.
Yeah, and I think that's the good angle about the high upside for Mason, just given the fact that Jones is coming back, and then also just looking at the Minnesota running game as a whole, because this Chargers defense, I mean, they've given up what, Sean, like 7 rushing touchdowns over the last 3 games, all to running back ones. So it's just been out of control, right? Like what their defense has been able to stop, and it's
And
been
this is
not.
nothing new for the Chargers defense. Sean kept using this outside run angle against them last
Yeah,
year, and they've been
Yeah.
even worse this year.
Yeah. So, all right. So good, very good choices here from Nick. So now, and they both kind of correlate too, which is good. So guys, we got to take a vote. Grant, Sean, are we going to take Minnesota to go over their team total at 20.5? Or are we going to take Jordan Mason to be Jordan Mason and get 70 plus rushing yards against this porous Chargers defense? So let's take a vote. All right, I went with Mason here, guys. Not just because I don't. I think they both are the same bet, in my opinion. I feel like if we get Mason, we're getting Minnesota team total over 20. Okay, 22. Oh, I got outvoted. Okay, all right. Well, that doesn't matter. All right, Minnesota team total over 20.5 is going to be the third leg of this parlay. So that's going to be along with Oronde Gadsden to have 5+ catches and over 42.5 receiving yards. So those are the first three legs of the parlay. And again, since we're so Minnesota centric and how we feel about how they're going to play in this game, I still think that there's receiving upside in this game for the Vikings. So I'm going to take two receiving touchdowns, both on the Vikings side. First pick, we're going to take Justin Jefferson. He's around plus 150, plus 155. I mean, he's getting 10 plus targets in each of the last three games. He's the only Viking who's running around 90% of the time in the red zone. Zone coverage a lot for the Chargers. He leads the team in targets per route runs. So I feel kind of silly trying to justify whether or not Justin Jefferson is a good touchdown bet, but I feel like right now at plus 155, given the fact that just he only has one this year, is fair to say I think he's due. So that would be the first leg, but this guy is actually my favorite touchdown bet of the two. It's Jordan Addison. He's right now around plus 220. 12 targets in week 7, 26 targets over the last three games since returning from suspension. A lot of touchdown pedigree in his career, at least 10 touchdowns scored in each of the first two seasons of his career. He almost had another one last week versus the Eagles. So I expect the Vikings to target him and Jefferson a lot, especially if they get close to the end zone and on deep throws as well, because they both have huge ADOTs versus zone coverages. So I think both of them are in play to score a touchdown in this game, but that's up for you guys to decide. Are we going to put on Justin Jefferson as the final leg of the same game parlay or Jordan Addison? So guys, let's take a vote. All right, guys, are we taking the guy who's due or are we taking the guy who's been doing it? What are we doing? Addison, Jetta. Oh, okay. All
Well,
right.
it's a homecoming game for Edison.
Yes, it is. And I guess, Nick, this is kind of a silly question, but I guess I'll ask it. Why did you vote for Jefferson over Addison? I don't, and I know it sounds like almost silly to ask, like, why did you take one of the best wide receivers in the NFL?
I have like three or four reasons here. First, our pro projections give Jefferson a 3.7% edge at plus 155 for a touchdown to just 0.4% edge for Addison. So both are plus EV. But the bigger edge to Jefferson, when I look at coverage matchups as well, it favors Jefferson a little bit more than it favors Addison. Part 3, I want to win a parlay, so this is just a little more likely to hit. And part 4, I had a cat named JJ, so I just wanted to put JJ on my card.
All right. Well, Jefferson, unfortunately, even though we both like him to score, he is not going to be the final leg of the same game parlay. It's actually going to be Jordan Addison. So now let's recap this parlay one more time. It is Oronde Gadsden, 5+ receptions. We're also taking him to go over on his receiving yards at 42.5. We like Minnesota to go over the team total at 20.5, and we're going to round that out with Jordan Addison for an anytime touchdown. Seeing this parlay right now at plus 900 at DraftKings, just under plus 800 at FanDuel. So obviously go for the higher odds at DraftKings if you can get that. So also, all right, that's all for us. I'm going to wrap this up now. I want to thank everybody for watching Action Island for Thursday Night Football. We'll be back here on the island on Monday. We're going to wrap up week 8 with the Washington Commanders and the Kansas City Chiefs. And it sounds like it's probably going to be Marcus Mariota in that matchup. Maybe we do a Mariota Mahomes touchdown parlay or something. I don't know, but we'll get to that when we get to Monday. So on behalf of Nick Giffen, Sean Koerner, Grant Neiffer, I'm Gilles Gallant. Aloha and bon chance.